I just think we need softer energy in the room, he said, stirring his coffee like it was the last bastion of courage he had left. His eyes didn't quite meet mine, which was funny considering he used to brag about leading negotiations with oil sheikhs in Dubai. But now, he was scared of a woman who asked vendors for invoice numbers and followed up on missed deadlines. That was me, Karen, director of ops, formerly indispensable, now intimidating. Words he actually used were, "My wife thinks you're intimidating." Can we dial that back? There it was, the iceberg tip, and I'd already read the map. His wife had been appointed to the board 2 months ago, which really meant she'd bullet her way in with Instagram metrics, buzzwords, and her daddy's connections to a fragrance label. Her new title, Chief Creative Visionary. I wish I was joking. She came in like a hurricane made of MAC setting spray and mood boards, demanding we tear out product lines that hadn't even launched yet. And now she was remodeling departments, which is corporate for find a way to fire the women who know what they're doing. So I smiled. Not the fake kind, I mean the full, serene, possibly sociopathic smile I reserve for when I'm planning my escape. I told him, of course, I'll be more careful. What I didn't say was, careful with what? My results, my tone, my expectations, or careful not to embarrass your wife by knowing what the hell I'm doing. That afternoon, I walked out of his office, past the interns who still whispered about the time I saved the launch of a failed influencer collab by rerouting 60,000 units of product through backup logistics, without waking a single VP. I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and wrote the most polite, devastating resignation letter the HR software had probably ever processed. Effective immediately. No drama, no notice, no more. There was no tantrum, no inbox bomb, no mysterious disappearing files. That's amateur hour. What I did was clinical, surgical, and to be honest, satisfying. But before we get to the juicy fallout, and trust me, it gets delicious, can I ask you something? If you've made it this far, hit that little subscribe button and maybe even tap like. It sounds silly, but it actually helps more than you think. Especially when the team sees folks out there enjoy these chaos chronicles. All right, back to the implosion. The real twist, I didn't leave the company empty-handed. I just left it structurally exposed. Because for the last 7 years, I wasn't just managing operations. I was the operations, procurement, vendor contracts, fulfillment override codes, loyalty tier algorithm changes, even the invisible budget approvals that flowed through our hush-hush luxury concierge service for high-profile clients. They all crossed my desk. And while I never abused access, I certainly knew which threads held the tapestry together. So I logged out. Properly. Respectfully. Then I pulled the plug on my old consultancy retainer with a European luxury partner. Retainer, the CEO's wife, didn't even know existed. One that floated a third of her winter edit collection through co-marketing funds. I shut it down with 2 emails and a thank you gift basket. I deauthorized my own emergency approval keys from the internal order system. I cleared permissions on our loyalty platform so that all escalated rewards now required manual authorization, archived every relevant SOP into a secure drive, and labeled it with 3 simple words, per your restructure. And then I left, walked right out into the afternoon sun with my favorite tote bag, picked up a lavender oat milk latte, and watched the first domino teeter. He thought he was managing optics. He didn't realize he'd just removed the only person keeping the machine from tearing itself apart. The next morning, I woke up with no alarm. First time in years. No Slack pings, no inbox fire drills, no 6 a.m. Zooms with some breathy VP who only remembered I existed when his influencer girlfriend wanted a custom handbag in a color we didn't make. Just silence. The kind of silence that used to make me nervous. Now, it felt like oxygen. I brewed my coffee slow, checked nothing, and then on pure autopilot, almost logged into the dashboard. Muscle memory. For a moment, hand hovered over the mouse like a ghost limb. But no, I was done. There would be no more 10 p.m. budget reclassifications, no more shipping escalation hacks, no more creative workarounds for a woman who thought mood lighting and hashtags were operations strategy. Instead, I cracked open my personal laptop. No trackers, no company keyloggers, just clean air. I opened a single folder, my own offboard plan, not for HR, for me. Compliance reports, finalized. All flagged exceptions noted, tied with a bow, and filed in the shared drive under the appropriate fiscal quarters. The kind of reports that used to get me thank you texts from the CFO at midnight during audit season. Now, radio silence. My vendor accounts systematically disconnected, not torched, not sabotaged, just removed. My name, my authority, my role, all unlinked. Talking multi-million-dollar vendor relationships I'd curated like bonsai trees. Slow, precise, no margin for error. I was the only person with active negotiation, threads open on 3 continents, and I deleted every draft template I ever wrote. Didn't even save them. Some things shouldn't be recycled. The consulting retainer with the Milan partner, that secret Swiss-armored contract the CEO's wife, never even noticed in the budget. I ended it myself. Founder sent me a voice memo in Italian I couldn't fully translate, but I caught the words for devastated and idiots. I replied with a photo of the sunset from my porch. No caption. Next came fulfillment. Most people don't realize how fragile shipping authorization is. You give one person too much power, you risk fraud. Give too little, the whole chain bottlenecks. I was the keystone. My override keys, I didn't delete them. I revoked them. There's a difference. Made sure every internal trigger that relied on my emergency approvals now rerouted to. No one, it was surgical. Quiet, no alarms went off, no angry emails, just a soft decoupling of one mind from a machine that didn't know it needed her. Yet, and I left something behind, one folder, physical, not digital, manila, tabbed, resting on the CEO's assistant's desk like a sealed fate. Label, per your restructure. Inside, process flows, delegation chains, contingency matrices. All of them annotated with red flags where roles had been quietly reassigned or not reassigned at all. Not a threat, not a sabotage, just reality, a mirror. I didn't expect applause, but I also didn't expect nothing. No thank you, no goodbye, not even a courtesy message from HR, who, let's be honest, probably found out I was gone when my badge stopped working. The weirdest part, no one tried to stop me. They didn't even notice the gravity shifting. That's how you know you've really done your job right, when everything looks fine, even as the infrastructure walks out the door in a pair of ballet flats and a linen blazer. By sunset, I was halfway through a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a real occasion. I toasted myself, not out of pride, out of grief, the kind of grief that comes when you realize you built something sacred for people who never looked past the email subject line. Let them run it. Let them try. I hadn't changed the rules. I just stopped being the exception. It started, like all good corporate disasters do, with a very polite, very frantic email. Subject line, urgent. Exclusivity clause escalated from a junior PR rep in LA who used to send me glittery thank you baskets during campaign season. 2. About 12 people who had no business reading the email, but were definitely about to panic. The body of the email was short. Hi, all. Just following up on the signed exclusivity clause for our client's capsule launch next month. Need confirmation by EOD or the press embargo lifts, and their stylist goes with another label. Our client is assuming exclusivity, as promised. Please advise, no attachments, no clause, no contract. Of course they couldn't find it, because I was the one who drafted it. I was the one who held the signature page, and I had done everything by the book. Filed, archived, delivered to legal for processing. Whether legal had passed it along to the new creative office, or whether the CEO's wife had decided she didn't believe in contracts, well, that wasn't my problem anymore. But it was definitely about to be someone's problem. Meanwhile, across the country, a warehouse in New Jersey, our biggest one, the one that moves 60% of our holiday inventory, stopped fulfilling orders at 10:17 a.m. Just stopped. System flagged every outbound shipment for the luxury tier as unauthorized. Because, funny thing about automation, when you pull the person with the override codes and don't replace her, things start to stall. At first, someone probably assumed it was a system glitch. Maybe they tried rebooting the portal. Maybe they opened a Zendesk ticket with the offshore dev team. Maybe they even called Larry in IT, who's been 3 months from retirement since Nixon left office. None of it worked. Why? Because the system wasn't broken. It was just doing what I told it to do when no valid override existed. Hours passed. Orders backlogged. Retail partners started pinging. Delayed AITA. Pending release. Can someone confirm if SKUs 94LX and 95LX were discontinued? They weren't discontinued. They were locked behind workflows I used to manage. And those workflows were now orphans, headless chickens in a maze of holiday markdown panic. I didn't find out from a coworker. No one texted me. I found out because the fashion blog The Mirror Room posted a blind item. Is one major holiday drop about to flop thanks to a silent executive exodus? There was a picture of one of our handbags with a cryptic caption. Still waiting, that made me laugh. Not a big laugh, just a quiet, hinged chuckle in the middle of a bookstore aisle while holding a copy of Atomic Habits I had no intention of buying. The irony was too rich. I'd built a system so airtight they thought it ran itself. They didn't realize I was the air. Later that night, as I scrolled from my couch, glass of wine in hand, I spotted the celebrity stylist's Instagram story. Just a black screen with a timestamp and one line, waiting on contracts that don't exist. Yikes. Same junior PR rep, bless her, forwarded the original thread to the CEO. I know because someone screenshotted it and posted it on a Slack gossip channel that, yes, I still had a burner login for. Sue me, I'm petty, not evil. The CEO replied all, looping in creative for support. Karen handled this prior. Let's circle back tomorrow. Except Karen wasn't handling anything. Karen was watching reruns of Columbo and eating sea salt chips on her couch, while the house she built started to groan under its own weight. No sirens, no smoke, just the first hairline fracture in the glass, the kind that looks harmless until it spreads. The morning of the quarterly board preview, she arrived like a peacock that mistook itself for a hawk. Designer boots too stiff to bend at the ankle, glossy trench coat, swinging like a curtain call. A team of 2 assistants in tow, one carrying coffee, the other carrying a rolling rack that squeaked like it was in pain. She'd renamed it the Winter Edit, even though nothing had actually been edited. It was Karen's line, Karen's vendors, Karen's supply chain. She just painted over the credit like a toddler with a glitter marker. She entered the room grinning, ready to perform. The board was half-seated, investors were mid-bagel, and there she was, standing at the head of the table like Moses with a Pinterest mood board. Good morning, everyone, she beamed. Today is the beginning of our new creative chapter. 10 seconds later, the projector screen blinked twice and displayed a system message. 404, collection not found. That's when she blinked. The lead merchandising VP, bless him, always the kind to bring a Tums pack to meetings, gently stood. Apologies, he said, voice calm. There seems to be a delay. The systems pulled the winter line from view due to back-end production conflicts. She frowned. That's impossible. I signed off on everything last week. He cleared his throat. Actually, Karen signed off on it. You submitted brand notes. The emergency production routes Karen used were flagged after her departure. Her permissions expired. No one's reauthorized them. A silence fell. You could hear someone's watch ticking. Probably vintage. Probably overpriced. She stared at him. Can't we just restart it? The CFO, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, shook his head. We tried. The workflow Karen built runs through a series of budget checks and override tiers. No one else had her level of access. Not even you. The assistant with the rolling rack looked like she wanted to evaporate. What about the vendor side? She snapped. Most of them are waiting on contract renewal. A few requested 12-month prepayment terms due to confidence disruptions. The word confidence echoed in her brain like a ricochet. She was used to influencer speak, vibes, aesthetics, trends. Not consequences. Not procedural collapse. She'd walked into this room expecting applause. Instead, she got a blank screen and the creeping realization that all those annoying approval texts Karen used to send weren't noise. They were the glue. Back in my apartment, I was halfway through a crossword and a grapefruit mimosa when someone sent me a photo of the boardroom screen. The caption was just, "Did you ghostwrite this error message?" I laughed, for real. It was the first time since walking out that I let myself feel it, not the anger, not the betrayal, but the satisfaction. The subtle thrill of watching someone finally understand that competence doesn't advertise itself. It just works. And when it leaves, it takes the engine with it. Later that day, they tried patching things manually. Someone in creative tried to send an old prototype list to production, got flagged by procurement. Legal didn't know which contracts were active. Finance refused to move funds without proper routing. Everyone was suddenly realizing the same thing. The system wasn't frozen, it was obeying the rules. My rules, the ones I'd spent 7 years refining. Rules they never bothered to learn. And her, CEO's wife, who'd called me a little too corporate, who once asked me in front of the interns if I could soften my emails so they felt less like subpoenas. She was sitting in the boardroom with a half-drunk almond milk latte and an empty screen, watching her debut turn to dust. The best part? I wasn't even there. I didn't have to be. By midweek, the building was metaphorically on fire, though if you'd ask the poor kid running internal communications, probably say it felt pretty literal. Slack channels turned into panic rooms. Subject lines became all-caps cries for help. Every single thing I used to do automatically, invisibly, with the grace of a ghost and the stress level of a hostage, was suddenly, violently visible. The team was scrambling. Not working, scrambling. Like toddlers trying to reassemble IKEA instructions they tossed out because they didn't need them. Except the IKEA table in question was a multi-million-dollar luxury retail conglomerate, and the missing screws were my workflows. Inventory forecasts? Gone. I had built those algorithms by hand, linked to seasonal consumer trend pulses, influencer events, and private tier demand curves. The replacement model was apparently just a spreadsheet. Someone sent out a draft with 3 whole typos in the first column header. I choked on my bagel reading it. Shipping escalations? Manual now. Which would be fine if anyone, knew how I'd tiered the priority codes. They didn't. They sent a high urgency tag to a vendor we hadn't used since 2019. He responded with a selfie from a boat in Crete and the line, "Who is this?" But the real gut punch came from an old textile supplier in Seoul. We'd worked with them for years, quiet, consistent, never late. Had personal relationships with 2 of their regional leads. They trusted me because I understood what on time really meant in their world. But now, their response came in hard and fast. Due to changes in leadership and voided escalation agreements, we require 12-month prepayment for all production orders. Contractual trust has been compromised. 12 months. In our world, that's like someone asking for a decade's worth of loyalty before handing you thread. Finance flipped. Legal flagged. The CEO called it extortion, which only confirmed he had no clue how that relationship worked in the first place. But my favorite moment? The CEO's wife, our new creative visionary, decided to bypass protocol entirely. She emailed one of the junior operations managers, a sweet guy named Darren who always stayed late, always triple-checked orders, and always sent thank you notes after big launches. She told him, in writing, to reinstate the winter edit manually, skip the budget checkpoints, and use his best judgment. Her exact words, "We don't need Karen's little rules anymore. Just get it done." Darren, saint that he is, didn't respond. He forwarded it directly to legal. And then, because apparently his mama raised him right, he BCC'd HR and archived the thread with a timestamp note. Request exceeded my clearance level. Refer to audit protocol. Somewhere an angel got its wings. I only found out because a former intern, someone I mentored for a year and who now worked in logistics, sent me a message. No greeting, no fluff, just "you were the glue, it's falling apart," that hit different, not in a smug way. In the kind of way that makes your chest go hollow for a second, because they weren't wrong. I was the glue. I just never thought they'd try to build the cathedral without it. And yet, here they were, elbow deep in workflows they didn't understand, trying to fix a system they never cared to learn, with a leadership team more concerned about optics than oxygen. I sipped my tea and watched in real time as the dominoes started to trip over one another. Not because I'd pushed them, but because they'd never learned how to stack them in the first place. They called the emergency meeting on a Friday. Classic move, dump the disaster before the weekend. Hope Monday memory loss will do the rest. Except this wasn't the kind of mess that fades after 2 days of Chardonnay and denial. This was a slow-motion implosion, dressed in brand-approved pastel slides and buzzwords that sounded more like eulogies than strategies. The boardroom smelled like fresh pastries and quiet dread. A last-minute attempt to soften what everyone knew was about to be a bloodbath. CEO opened with a tone that tried for upbeat, but landed somewhere between hostage video and used car commercial. "Thanks for joining on short notice," he said, clicking his little remote like it was a panic button. "We're experiencing some transitional growing pains, but we're confident it's all part of forward momentum." That was his phrase of the week, forward momentum, like saying it would will the chaos into a productivity story they could pitch to investors. First slide was a flowchart, or maybe a crime scene. Hard to tell. It showed production timelines that didn't connect to procurement approvals, campaign dates that landed before product availability, and something labeled winter revision, circled in red 3 times. Someone coughed. Someone else muttered, "Jesus." A senior partner, the kind who made a killing during the last recession and hasn't smiled since, leaned forward, and spoke like he was ordering an execution. "Key partners freezing deals?" he asked. The CEO hesitated. "Well, some of them were, informal relationships handled off-cycle. We're renegotiating access. Translation, we don't know." Another partner, one of the newer ones, too eager by half, chimed in. "Weren't those managed under ops?" The CFO spoke without looking up. "Yes, Karen handled them." There it was, my name, finally spoken like it belonged to a ghost in the walls. The eager partner tried again. "Okay, but shouldn't we have access to those workflows? Can't we just reassign them?" The CFO looked up this time, and when he spoke, it wasn't with anger or panic. It was cold. Clinical, true. Karen left and no one's sure what systems she controlled. Silence, not dramatic, just solid, like concrete sitting over a body. He went on. "There are authorizations still pending that we can't trace. Legacy routing protocols no one has documentation for. He didn't hide anything, she just owned it. And now she's gone." Someone shifted in their seat. The assistant tried to refill coffee cups, but her hand was shaking and one of them spilled. The CEO muttered something like, "Let's stay focused," but it was too late. The mood had shifted, because suddenly it wasn't about Karen being gone. It was about the fact that no one knew how the hell she did what she did, and that realization was loud. The CEO tried to salvage it, initiated a system-wide audit, and were compiling all knowledge transfers into an operations rebuild. The learning curve is steep, but the team is. The senior partner cut him off. "You're rebuilding a plane while it's already falling from the sky." No one spoke after that. Across town, I was sitting at a window bar with a peppermint mocha, and my dog curled at my feet. I had no idea what was happening in real time, but I felt it. That weird, still energy when the truth finally lands somewhere it can't be spun. My phone buzzed. It was a photo, grainy, slightly tilted, clearly taken under the table. The whiteboard in the boardroom. At the top, what did Karen do? Underneath it, vendor access, internal routing, emergency fulfillment, budget overrides, concierge clients, loyalty tier codes, and then a scribbled line under it all. Who else knows this? I stared at it for a long time. Not with pride, not even with smugness, just quiet affirmation. The way you feel when the fog clears and you see the damage from a storm you warned everyone was coming. They didn't listen. Now they were bleeding, and I was finally completely out of reach. The first voicemail came Sunday night. I almost didn't recognize the number, burner line, probably, or her assistant's backup phone. But I recognized the tone. That syrupy, fragile pitch people use when they realize the bridge they set on fire might have actually been their only way across. "Hi, Karen, it's me. I know this is unexpected, but we were wrong. I was wrong. I think we made a mistake. Things are not working. The board's upset. People are confused. I think you and I maybe got off on the wrong foot. We could really use your help, pause, breath, if you'd be open to a conversation. Just to talk, please call me back." "Okay," click. I didn't. Instead, I turned the volume down and went back to slicing limes for my gin and tonic. The evening breeze smelled like impending rain and distant desperation. I didn't smile. I didn't rage. I just listened to the sound of someone finally tasting the consequences they'd baked from scratch. The second attempt was more official. An email, corporate header, digital signature, full of soft landings and empty promises. From the CEO himself. "Karen, hoping to initiate a short-term consulting engagement to guide us through some ongoing transitions. We'd love your insights on the systems you helped design. Of course, we're open to structuring it however you feel most comfortable. This is a flexible engagement. No pressure, just a conversation to explore potential collaboration. Hope you're well. Let us know. Warm regards, him." I reread it 3 times, not because I was considering it, because I couldn't believe the sheer audacity it took to ask for a parachute from the woman they'd pushed out the plane. They didn't want collaboration. They wanted a defibrillator. They wanted me to plug back in, fix the holes, and smile politely while they took credit for managing the turbulence. I deleted the message without responding. That night, I ordered Thai food from the little place down the street that knew my name and never got my order wrong. I sat on the couch in sweatpants older than their onboarding system and watched a documentary about glacial collapse. Seemed fitting. The next day, a courier dropped off a branded gift box at my building. Inside, a gold-embossed planner, a handwritten note, "You were always the organized one," and a soy candle labeled Fresh Start. It smelled like citrus and irony. I gave it to my neighbor. I didn't answer their texts. I didn't answer their calls. Not out of spite, out of discipline, out of understanding that some bridges deserve to stay burned. especially when the people on the other side only notice the fire once it reaches their feet. They thought I'd come running. They thought competence comes with loyalty. They forgot that loyalty isn't owed, it's earned. And once you decide your silence is louder than your labor, there's no going back. So I let them scramble, let them draft strategy memos and spin up recruiting requests, and pretend like a consulting engagement would undo the damage. Like they could buy back the spine they removed. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need a scene. I just needed the peace of being unreachable, because for once, they were the ones circling me. By Tuesday morning, the headlines hit like a slap. Nothing graphic, nothing explosive, just precise little scalpels, expertly wielded by fashion journalists who lived for blood beneath a silk wrap. Holiday capsule delayed. Internal restructuring to blame. Whispers of chaos at Langmore and Vale HQ as shipments stall. Luxury brands winter line MIA. Sources cite leadership vacuum. And then came the blogs. Oh, the blogs. Gloss Weekly ran a blind item thinly veiled as fiction. When the woman who ran ops like a Swiss watch walks out the door, what's left? Apparently not much. One CEO's wife might be regretting her restructure about now. Even Deco Trash, known more for tracking celebrity buttocks than back-end logistics, ran with it. Where did the winter edit go? And who's Karen? Who's Karen? That one made me laugh. The brand tried damage control. They launched a splashy teaser campaign featuring last year's leftovers and passed them off as classic winter staples reimagined. Influencers were already whispering that their gifted PR boxes hadn't arrived, and fulfillment centers were still missing authorization from 3 key vendors. Then came the TikTok. Grainy lighting, office break room. A junior buyer I barely remembered, Maddie. Macy, filming herself sipping a protein shake with dead eyes. Caption, the one woman who ran this place left and took the brand's soul with her. The video racked up 800K views overnight, hundreds of comments. Karen, if you see this, teach me your ways. I knew something was off when our returns doubled. Petitioned to find Karen and make her CEO. I watched it on loop once, then closed the app. That same day, the board issued an internal memo, emergency audit of all operational workflows. Their language was crisp, corporate, and panicked. They'd brought in consultants. I could have told them they'd need 6 months and a minor miracle. Instead, I sat at a sunlit cafe downtown, waiting for someone who might actually respect what I'd built. He arrived 5 minutes early. Crisp navy suit, no tie. Founder of a rival luxury house, smaller, hungrier, smarter. I'd seen his name in acquisition rumors for years, but never expected him to text me directly. We shook hands. He didn't waste time. Karen, he said, I don't want what you had. I want what you are. I want you to build something better, the ground up. Full autonomy, no committees, no vanity titles, just results. I sipped my espresso and tilted my head. You understand what that takes, he nodded. That's why I came alone. He slid a folder across the table, not filled with legalese. Just 3 things, a map of global logistics hubs, a P&L snapshot, and a sketch, literal pencil sketch, of a product line that didn't exist yet. I want systems that scale and don't break, he said. I want elegance behind the curtain, not just in front of it. I hadn't realized how much I missed being seen, not as a function, not as a utility, as a builder. I didn't say yes, not yet. I told him I'd think, but we both knew what that meant. Back at my apartment, I poured a glass of wine and watched the city lights twitch below. Somewhere uptown, a woman was crying over late shipments and broken trust. Somewhere in an overpriced office tower, board was blaming each other for the ghost they couldn't replace. And somewhere, maybe not far from now, something new was about to rise. Not out of revenge, but because excellence deserves a second chance. This time, with my name on the door. By the time the next quarterly meeting arrived, the boardroom was no longer a place of strategy. It was a war zone in dry-cleaned suits. Everyone had stopped pretending. The smiles were gone. The pastries untouched. CFO had brought 2 laptops and a bottle of antacids. The legal counsel looked like he hadn't slept in a week. And the CEO's wife, she walked in 20 minutes late, mascara already smudged like she'd gone 10 rounds with reality. She didn't sit, she paced. I need to understand, she snapped, voice cracking, breath short. I need someone, anyone, to explain what the hell happened to my winter edit. To the vendor list. To the systems. No one interrupted. Intern taking minutes was visibly trembling. Her husband tried to speak, but she turned on him like a dog cornered. Don't, she hissed. You told me this was handled, that we were fine, that she was replaceable. Her voice rose, unfiltered now. We lost millions. We've got Vogue asking why our Q4 line looks like a clearance bin. We've got clients switching to our competitors. We've got warehouses running manually like it's 2006. Still, no one spoke. She broke. She slammed a printout on the table, eyes wild. This is what she left us with. It was the final systems routing chart, now covered in red flags, blank sign-offs, and scribbled comments like reauthorize. And who owns this? And then, voice trembling like she couldn't believe she was even saying it. What did you do? The chairman, grim and unmoved, adjusted his glasses. He reached for a folder, one he hadn't opened until now. From it, pulled a single page. I believe, he said, this is what she did. And then he read it aloud. As requested, all project ownership has been reverted to internal leadership. All permissions have been revoked. No workflows were deleted. No contracts were modified. All existing systems remain intact, now operating under their original intended settings. Silence. Heavy, complete. Then, from the far end of the table, someone, probably the oldest partner in the room, one who never raised his voice, never touched a laptop, just whispered. She warned us. The wife sat down, or collapsed, it was hard to tell. One hand covered her mouth. The other clutched the corner of the table like it might save her from drowning. No one offered comfort, because the truth had landed, and it didn't need an exclamation point. Just the cold echo of inevitability. Downtown, sunlight glazed the rooftop of a quiet cafe. I sat beneath a striped umbrella, small plate of olives at my elbow, glass of sparkling water sweating gently beside my notebook. Across from me, the founder I'd met with days earlier had just stepped away to take a call, one I could tell he was enjoying. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again. 5 missed calls, 8, 11, all from the company line, a few from personal numbers, 1 voicemail. I flipped the phone face down and smiled, because this wasn't vengeance. This wasn't drama. This was the sound of power returning to where it had always belonged, with the person who built it, protected it, and finally walked away from it. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.